Welcome, college basketball fans, to the Full Court Press Podcast with LT and Sammy D. This is the podcast that brings you legendary stories from college basketball's golden era and dives in deep with a current analysis of today's game. Get ready for the most energetic and entertaining college basketball podcast around. Let's get it.
Hello and welcome to another Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience. I stumbled for a second, Sammy, because when you texted me I'm ready, I was upstairs eating sweet and salty caramel popcorn. So Luke Taylor here, Sam Davidson. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We got another nice review. They love watching the pod or listening to the podcast. We got another 5-star from Jenna G. And some other gentleman, a fine gentleman, actually we know them, but I didn't realize they were podcast listeners, and they're Michigan graduates. They're good people. So
Go Blue.
And they sent me a wooden book. So thank you so much. And so there's a little bit going on in the world. We had a really good podcast this past week with Coach Martin. Oh, it's from Jenna G and Nate K. We love listening. 5 stars. So that's great podcast. So big ups to them. I got some issues with this transfer portal. I think it's up to close to 1,800 names now.
I mean, it's a new breed of college basketball. You know, I don't think anyone expected this a couple of years ago when they made some of these rules changes and whatnot, but players are taking advantage of it where they can. And, some players are going to benefit from it, and some players won't have a team to play for next year.
What do you think the percentage of kids is or are that enter the transfer portal and don't have a new school? I'd be curious to see what the percentage is.
It's a really small percentage. I think that most of these players are going to find a home, right?
Better than where they're at.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at. Is like it's not going to a higher percentage than I think the world thinks are going to a worse home, right? I think that they put their name in there to try to get better offers, and they're not going to get it. And I think it's a learning experience, for a lot of these players. And then you have the high school players coming in. This next season should be, it's the last season of the COVID year, this next year. And so I think we have one more year where it's complete and utter chaos. And then next year, it's just going to be complete chaos,
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to be wild, but, you're going to have one less age bracket who's eligible, right? If that makes sense. And so you're going to have less people competing for those spots.
But what's amazing when you see recruiting like updates and stuff like that, for every one high school recruit that signs or is committed, there's like 10 transfer portal commitments or what have you. And it's funny because I ran into a very well-known high school coach, and I was talking to him kind of off the cuff. He has put players in the NBA. He actually has a player right now in the NBA that's we'll just say is somewhat well known, and he was saying that it's really unfortunate for these high school kids because he's still a high school coach. His team's one of the top teams in the state every year, and a lot of these kids are getting passed up. So that's kind of disappointing. It would be curious to see what happens with all these AAU tournaments, especially the very competitive ones, the highest level of AAU, to see how few coaches are not going to be at these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of coaches who aren't going to be there. I do think.
Why would you?
I think that they'll have some kind of representation, but instead of the head coaching going and putting his face there, it's going to be an assistant coach. Right?
No, it's not going to be an assistant. It's going to be like the
director of basketball operations or whatever.
The graduate assistant, the student managers. They're just going to sound like.
I mean, I feel like they still want to say like that. They still want to shake hands with the parents. They want to know, but a lot of these bigger programs, they're like, hey, go fine tune your game at a small or mid-major program, and then give us a call in between your sophomore and junior year.
Isn't that pathetic?
Like I mean, that's the reality of it though, right? So
yeah, and you feel bad for these mid-majors because they start, I mean, you looked at all the mid-majors we've had on the podcast. We've had quite a few.
I've had a lot of them, yeah.
And I just saw was it Buzo from Boise State just committed to USC. I didn't realize he was in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You know, and then you look at St. Thomas, who was at University of Northern Colorado 2 years in a row, lost Dalton Connect to Tennessee, and now St. Thomas is at USC in LA, baby. La Land.
Yeah, I mean, it's Coach Smiley at Northern Colorado, he's developing some ball players, you know, and it's, I mean,
yeah, but how can you sustain this model?
Well, you don't sustain it. I mean, you have to adapt to it and you accept it to some degree, right? And I mean, I think you get guys like Coach Smiley who have a very positive attitude towards saying, hey, this is the role that I'm playing in this era of basketball. And then we've talked to some other coaches who are like, shit, I'm not going to have a job in 2 years because I can't.
2 years, 2 hours.
Right. So it's going. I don't know what to think of it because we've never really seen anything like this before. It's hard. One, you know, having a college basketball podcast. Two, as a fan of the game, because it's like you don't know what your team's going to look like next year. And when you get excited about a freshman or sophomore on the team that you're cheering for, or your alumni team, you have to kind of pause now and be like, oh shit, this guy might not be here next year.
Right.
You know, where it's like you didn't have that growing up. You didn't have that 5-10 years ago, even, you know, you were like, especially good programs. Like that's surprising. That's where it's surprising to me are all the players transferring from really good programs.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look at Mason Giles from Purdue. I mean, he
was
a
point. Like,
and now he's going to Duke. I'm like, what? You were just in the national championship game.
Yeah. I mean, all of these players who are Power 6 programs, starters for Power 6 programs, starters on Power 6 programs who finished at the top of their conference are transferring, right? Like that's the thing that's surprising to me. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be an interesting season next year. It's already an interesting off season. If we can even
we're not going to have any preseason conference tournament shows because it's like, hey, I remember him from you know, Akron, and now so-and-so. Hey, Akron, shout out to Akron. They just signed 3 studs, dude.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to reintroduce ourselves to like all these programs, you know, not in a formal way, but like when we do our preseason picks, we're going to be like, oh, like what we thought that team was going to look like in March or April this year. It's a completely different squad come August, September, October next year.
So. Yeah. So we got a good podcast this week, huh?
Well, we've got an excellent podcast. We are, I think, the official podcast of Coach Martin's. So
yes. Is there any more Coach Martins that we missed? We've got.
We'll have to look. I mean, last week we posted our pod episode with Coach Frank Martin from UMass, which was one of my favorite episodes. I mean, that guy's just
great dude.
That guy's a legend. And and then you want to introduce this week's episode?
Yes,
I know you're excited.
You just don't want to say his name, Coach Cuonzo Martin from Missouri State. He's back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Coach So, as they call him. Yeah. Missouri State Bears. You know, he coached at Missouri State from 2008 to 2011, was the Missouri Valley Coach of the Year one of those years. Yeah. And then took off for what I think everybody thought was greener pastures, head coach at Tennessee, California, Missouri and took the last 2 seasons off. And is back at Missouri State. So we talk a little bit about that, like what was appealing to him to come back. And he mentions things like the transfer portal and NIL and, you know, the appeal of going to a mid-major program, you know, which is, I thought it was a really fun take, you know, to hear him talk about that decision process and what, you know, the AD at Missouri State, Kyle Moats, like what that conversation was like. And, yeah, you even got into a little Bass Pro Shop.
Yes, recruiting tip. Yeah, I've been to Springfield before, the Big Bass Pro Shop. I don't know why. but I actually was there, and it's really impressive. But he's I remember watching him light up Kansas. I think he was in the Sweet 16. Big Dog had that huge dunk on Greg Ostertag. I think Coach had 6 or 7 threes that game. I think he said he shot 11, which I thought was very disrespectful.
He was 8 for 13 from 3-point.
Yeah,
that game, which is crazy. At the time, I think it was a Purdue record. I don't know if it still is or not, but
he was the Jack Golke of the 90s.
Yeah, dude, that guy Cuonzo Martin was a ball player at Purdue, man.
And he was built like a brick shithouse, so he was great on defense.
He got overshadowed by his teammate Glenn Big Dog Robinson, who he talks about, and one of the best college players probably the last 30 or 40 years. And so, we talk a little bit about what it was like to be Big Dog's teammate, even about growing up in East St. Louis with a teammate like LaFonso Ellis. I mean, Cuonzo Martin just has such a cool story. It was really fun to have him on this upcoming episode, and a really exciting interview we had. And his enthusiasm to come back to Missouri State and lead that program into next season was it's a fun listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Let's get into the episode with Coach Cuonzo Martin from Missouri State, the Bears.
Let's get it, LT.
All right. The year is 1971. Lords of the Underground, birth of the funky child. Who was born in 1971? Our next guest. We got Coach Cuonzo Martin from Missouri State, back again, 2.0 on the Full Court Press podcast, a college basketball experience. Welcome, Coach. I got one question to ask you before you say thanks for being here and thanks for having me. Is why the hell did you leave?
No, it's all good, man. It's great to be back, man. And again, thank you guys for having me. But it's fun times right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you got announced as the new head coach at Missouri State in March. And what's the last kind of 3-4 weeks been like for you? It's a wild time in college basketball, huh?
Yeah, well, it's been great for me because again, I was along for the ride with Purdue basketball because my son was a walk on there. So he's finishing up his senior year, he graduates in May, so I had a chance to experience those guys for the last 2 years, and then the stretch run to make it to the Final Four to lose against a great UConn team. So I was a part of that in the mix, and that was a phenomenal experience. But then getting a job here, press conference, everything was moving so fast. But fast is good for me right now because I've been vacationing for 2 years, pretty much living life on the beach and the lakes, man. So this fast is good right now.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So it looks like you have 4 players left on the roster. I believe you signed someone or got someone committed yesterday or the day before from Ooey Pooey, as I like to call it, Indiana University, Purdue University of Indiana. But I think they're changing that, or they have. You had 7 players enter the transfer portal. That was probably before you got hired. I mean, Sam and I talk about this a lot. We talk a lot about this with all the head coaches we have weekly. 1,700 plus kids in the transfer portal. I mean, when you played at Purdue, you were on a very good team. Can you imagine what it would have been like for you guys with you and Glenn Robinson, your teammates with NIL in the transfer portal?
Well, I know one thing. Glenn would have been a wealthy man. I knew that. So that I do know. But I just think, man, it's a different world we're in. We have to embrace it. And I think the 2 years off allowed me to have a peace of mind and understanding this if I decide to get back into it. Because, again, I was a part of the oversight committee and, of course, on the ABC board, 4 or 5 years ago when we were talking about it. And we knew it was coming, but what we did know, they were both coming at the same time. NIL and transfer portals, like a bomb just hit, boom. And there were no guardrails to brace ourselves on how to approach it. I think that's the thing. But I will be clear here. I'm happy that young men are getting money because, I talk about it all the time. My wife and I, we talk about it. Again, when I left East St. Louis, very humble beginnings, I didn't have a lot on Purdue's campus. And it wasn't as if, as great a man as Coach Katie was, but it wasn't as if he gave me $1,000, go get you some clothes, it didn't happen. So that was a real struggle. And then, of course, Glenn Robinson, I knew what he didn't have. People might assume things, but he didn't have a lot. And that's hard. Now you look at the game today, so I'm happy to see that, and I'm hopeful, guys, that whether it's 5,000, million, whatever they get all the money. I just think we have to be better with the transfer portal, because I think we're hurt. And I'm only speaking men's basketball because that's my world, but I think we have to be better there, because what happens is, I'll give you me, for example, growing up in East St. Louis, again, humble beginnings, and playing for Coach Katie. It was tough early, learning what Coach Katie wanted, expecting at the level he needed. I didn't play a lot, so December I could have said, let me transfer, maybe in the spring transfer. But if I would have transferred, I would not have received all those life lessons when things were uncomfortable. I had to grow under his umbrella. And now I'm successful today because of that. Now you become a man, a husband, father, teacher, and a pillar in your community because of those lessons, and you didn't run. What you'll see right now, if we're not careful, we'll see a lot of young men that'll have track shoes on. They'll be running the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. And now, if you transferring from a situation, because it's the best situation financially, everything plan-wise, great. But I'm just hopeful that these young men make sound decisions before they make a move, because you got a lot of guys that jump out there in the portal because it sounds good, and they have no options after that. It's a painful lesson.
Yeah, we've had some coaches on the podcast, even Coach Frank Martin 2 days ago, and he was saying that, he feels bad.
No, just wait, Sam, just wait. I asked Coach Martin, just quickly, and then you can ask this question, because it's a good question. I asked Coach Martin, what is one current coach that could kick your ass? And you know who he said? He didn't even freaking hesitate. He said you. He said you would kick his ass.
He had no idea we were talking today either.
No, man. We brothers from another mother. That's what that is. That's family right there.
I know, but I remember when you played. You were a defensive stopper. You were physical. You could shoot the rock too. But come on, man. You know you can still throw down a little bit. No, the only thing I'm throwing down is steaks on a barbecue grill. That's the only thing I'm throwing down.
That's good. Well, what Coach Frank told us was, he feels bad for some of these players, because it's like, I mean, he knows, and they don't really have a home anymore. Where you go back to Purdue's campus, even when you were at the Final Four watching those guys, people know you, right? They you're synonymous with an era of Purdue basketball, right? And these guys who are moving from 2 to 3, 4 schools during their late teens, early 20s, they don't go back and have a home, right? And how important that is. With you as a player, what we're seeing a lot of is players want to play for players, like coaches who understand that, right?
Yes.
And what is that like during the recruiting process for you, having that knowledge as a former player that, you are an advocate for players getting paid, right? Whereas some coaches, they're just accepting it, right? What are those conversations like when you're the last couple of weeks even?
For me, it's great, because whatever financial resources we have, you can have as a player. Of course, you got to be able to distribute those things, and it won't be equal, but you got to be able to distribute whatever you have. But I think the most important thing, we just try to sell a program, because again, in order to be great, it still takes what it takes. There's still the work that's involved to be a great player. We also want guys to understand the importance and the impact of having a successful and getting a career and getting a degree. And when you constantly move in schools based on basketball, the percentage are still the same. It's not like the NBA has 1,000 jobs, still 450 jobs in the NBA. So if that's your goal, that doesn't change. So you got to put yourself in a position to be successful as a student and work toward being the best basketball player you can become. And I go back to myself. My relationship with Coach Katie helped open up so many doors, because that was the one coach that I played for. And so now he can pick up the phone, because he can talk intimately about me from the standpoint of knowing me at 17 to however long he knew me. So he can really talk about where I come from, my family, my mom, all these things. That was a relationship. Same way with Coach Weber. Bruce Weber was my assistant coach. So that was the same family. But I think what happens with a lot of young men now, you consistently transfer to different schools. Whatever your reasons for, that's your right. Now you've never built any relationship, just like anything. There are 2 guys on my staff right now that one of them I helped recruit at Purdue. One of them I was assistant coach when he was at Purdue. So now those are relationships. So now you build those relationships. It's an easy transition because we have a relationship. I think a lot of these young guys right now, it'll almost be like and I'm using this respectfully, they'll be homeless when they're done playing ball because they have no family when it comes to the basketball world.
And that was the thing we noticed. We were actually at the Final Four, and I think there were a couple former players and coaches that I had a cease and desist order to stay away from me. So that's why you probably didn't see me, which is cool. But it was amazing how many former players were there from all the teams, not just UConn. I mean, I interviewed Richard Hamilton after the game, Khalid El-Hameen, Okafor, Ray Allen was there. I mean, there were Charlie Villanueva, but like you guys, we saw Robbie Hummel, you were there. I mean, there was a ton of guys from all four teams, and that is not going to happen in 10, 15 years. It's just not.
Those days are gone. I'm hopeful the NCAA and the local government, somebody can come up with something to say we need some consistency there. But I think we have to find ways to keep young men and women at their respective schools. Like, for example, if you stay at a school for 4 years and you graduate, here's a $400,000 check.
Absolutely.
So you have to give incentives to stay at those schools. Now, if the coach is abusive and mistreated, we need to fire the coach immediately. So we have to make sure that room and ways for the young men and women to stay at those schools, because there's a lot of value in it. Now, again, I'm not talking one and done athletes, but there's a lot of value in a 4 or 5 year college experience. You really grow and learn lessons, understanding financial literacy, how to write a check. Getting my first apartment, I got to make the phone call to be able to pay my bills, to get a bank account. All these things, these are life lessons that I learned in college. So that's what college is all about. It's a lot of growth, and you can make a lot of mistakes under the coaching staff or the university umbrella, because once you leave the university, it's all on you at that point.
Right. So take us through the last couple of weeks when it comes to recruiting. I mean, have you followed some of these guys? I mean, it seems like no one's recruiting high school kids anymore in the mid-major level anywhere, just because here's the problem. You develop them like Missouri Valley. If you look at Lance Jones, where was he before? Southern Illinois.
Yes.
There was another kid from, 3 of the top players out of the Missouri Valley 2 years ago were gone. And then you're seeing it again. I mean, the Missouri Valley is kind of a blank canvas with Missouri State, Drake, UIC, and Indiana State. Take us through how you are building a roster. Like, what are the conversations? What are you looking at? I mean, what are the conversations with the 4 players that are staying, it looks like?
It's been great for me. I can tell you that. Just recruiting, the excitement of it, the energy behind it. But again, having 2 years of rest and a peace of mind, that's very helpful. So just really, and a lot of these relationships I have from the standpoint of my reputation as a coach, my experience being in the area, the AAU coaches, all those things. So that part has been great. And I think they also know they come to Missouri State while I'm here as the head coach, their guys will get better and they will get the nurturing they need. Now, here's the flip side of that. Me as a coach, I have no problem with developing young men, because we take a lot of pride in seeing a kid grow on and off the course. If it's skill development and all of a sudden somebody's offering to say, here's $200,000 to $600,000, man, I'm gonna wish him the best, because here's the key behind that. He's creating generational wealth. I've done my part. I would be mad all of a sudden nobody's calling about it. So that means I haven't done my job as a coach. So again, I think as coaches, we have to flip that mentality. I've heard some guys say, well, we spent time recruiting, we helped develop, he's gone. I mean, he's not your child. I mean, you don't own him. He did what he needed. You did your job as a coach. He has to do what's best for he and his family, because all of a sudden, coach, they call you up and there's a tremendous opportunity for you to become a head coach, financial stability. You're going to take that job. So I think we have to look at it in a way, it's a tremendous opportunity, but we have to find a way, though, and I talk about it all the time, to help these kids understand why you're transferring. Is this the best move for you? And that's my biggest key. The money part, again, they can get $100,000 to $1 million. Great, but we just got to figure out a way. And that's the same thing. I coach them as if we might have them for 1 year. We have them for 4, great, but I look at it 1 year at a time.
Hey, Coach, have you ever taken any recruits in your previous stop to, or in the last 3 weeks, to the Big Bass Pro Shop?
Not yet, but one of our recruits, his family came and his family went to Bass Pro. We didn't. Now I've been there quite a bit. They went, so we didn't go because we moving fast. We got guys just coming in and out. We moving fast like Disney World. They in and out. We rolling. So, and it's good times right now. But we will do that.
There's so the past 24, 48 hours, the news has been about you're finalizing your staff. As you take on Missouri State for the second time, like what's that team look like from a coaching staff with, Carson, Terrence, Marco, Quinn, all these guys you announced the last 48 hours. How proud you are of that staff? And
Purdue South. It's Purdue South, Coach.
Yeah. So you're talking about guys again that one that values. Of course, they all play basketball, but you're also talking about guys that value then a young man becomes successful. So it's not as if you're recruiting guys and ultimately you look at them like they're cattle. We don't do that. These are young men, and our goal is to help these guys become successful men to live successful lives. And there's a lot that goes into that. And for me, the trust is most important, because if I'm not around our players, I need to have men around our players that understand how I value this relationship. So I would say one of the biggest areas I struggle in as a coach is trust, and meaning I want the men around our players to understand you have to treat them right. So I need to know who you are, because, and I'll give you an example of what I'm saying, and this has probably happened quite a bit. Say, for example, a young assistant coach is trying to get one of the better players to get him motivated, to get him to play hard, to get him to compete. And he says, man, you suck. Coach is tired of you. Coach can't stand the way you play. And that young man heard, coach is tired of you. Coach can't stand the way you play. And coach has never said anything about that kid. That relationship is lost because of what somebody said. It's not even true. So for me, we all have to line up and say the same things and deal with our players. And that's very important for me. Even when you're not talking to the players, and you're talking to their parents, what are we saying? We have to make sure we're honest, consistent, and on the same page. And I've seen and heard a lot of stories where that's not always the case.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, so you're kind of a heartbreaker. Where I first learned about you, it was in the elite, actually the Sweet 16, when you shot 8 threes against our beloved Jayhawks.
He shot 13. He only made 8. That's all.
Okay, how many did you shoot that day, Sam?
I'm just
How
joking.
many? How many did you shoot? Were you in diapers?
I grew up in Kansas City, so that was a heartbreaker for me. So
Here we go. He's just like brown nosy. Okay, let me ask something, Coach. Talk about Greg Ostertag.
He was a good player, man. He was Big O. He was tough, man. Greg and obviously Steve Woodbury is a good friend of mine that played at Kansas. A guy that's 6'5", that can do a lot of things. A guy that can play 1, 2, 3. Ostertag was a good player, man.
He got in the way of somebody, though.
Oh, you talking about when Dog dunked on him? Oh, yeah. Dog. I mean, Dog had 30 at the half. I mean, Dog was a phenomenal. Man, I can only imagine how much money Dog would be getting right now. Oh, yeah, I guess he wouldn't be in college. I mean, just that level of player. But if he's in college, man, you talk about.
Well, didn't you hear about Balo went to Indiana for like what they're reported as $1.2 million?
That was that's the rumors that he was requesting from the other 3 schools he visited. And so Indiana picked him up. So it can only be assumed they got the closest to that.
That is what I call a blessing.
Right. Like good for that young man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what did Ostertag say to Big Dog after he dunked on him?
I'll call Dog and find out, and I guess it'd be too late to text it to you. But I mean, but I think he really just kind of said good move or something. It wasn't nothing negative, just like good move. You give props to it.
That was respect. Yeah, that was respect.
Without question, he went up over. That was a big time dunk there.
Yeah, and Sean Bradley never did that either, which was disappointing. You played in the league. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody wanted to post ride poor Sean Bradley.
John, man, you talking about? He was a talented player, man. I can only imagine being that tall. But I look at Zach Edey, man, just to be that tall, that physical, that tough. And the thing about, I tell people about Zach Edey, you're talking about a guy that played at a high level, never gets tired, and is tough as nails, man. That's a deadly combination. I'd be shocked if he's not a lottery pick of what he brings to the table in the program.
Right.
He should be. Yeah, the way he moves his body is. I haven't seen a 7-footer that's 300 pounds with that kind of footwork, man.
Canadian.
Tough as nails. I mean, tough.
Yeah.
We're built a little bit differently in Canada. We've got really nice. We're very friendly until provoked. We have really nice footwork. Sam's seen my footwork.
I've seen you on the dance floor. I wouldn't call that footwork, man, but it's all good. But yeah, I mean, Zach Edey, it's LT and I were talking at the Final Four. I mean, he was there for business, like it was like there was a lot of players outside. I will say like outside Purdue and UConn were both there for business, right? Yes. NC State and Alabama, they were having a little bit more fun, and you can kind of tell that in the tunnel in the locker room. And it's like, but Zach Edey, I mean, he didn't have a smile on his face like once he showed up to that arena. Like any of those days, like he was there strictly for business, and I mean he showed up. That was fun to watch in person. So.
Zach was Zach meant all business. I was Zach had me a little shocked and scared when he shook Shaq's hand at the end of that one game. It's like, man, Zach, you know that Shaq? I mean, stop for a minute, give him a hug or something. Zach shook the hand, kept moving. I'm like, man, this guy, he's on a mission.
I know. He just dapped him up and said, "Hey, it's been a pleasure to meet you finally," and then just kept walking to the locker room. And I'm like, "Man, that's your chance."
Yeah, and Sam and I both met Shaq, and it was funny. I was hoping Shaq was going to stand behind him like a little kid in front, because that's a big man. No one ever tried to dunk on Shaq, though. Let's be honest. Why would you?
Shaq too physical, man. Shaq take you out there. You'll be in the hospital for a month. You don't want to do that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So Coach,
going back to Missouri State, Coach Zoe, like what's appealing to come back to a university that you're at? Is it the familiarity, and like who called who first? Did Kyle Moats call you? Did you call him when that position opened? What was that process like, both with that relationship as well as with you and your family, going back to Springfield?
Yes. Eventually Kyle Moats called, because I had different fillers calling in about different schools and programs. And for me, the one thing when you're talking about a Power Five, if there was no consistency, in my opinion, with name, image, and likeness, I didn't want to put myself in that situation. Again, at 32, 38 years old, okay, you gamble, but I just didn't want to do that. So I wanted to be in a situation where I felt like, one, you can win, the people value basketball. You're familiar with relationships, so now when you're fighting for name, image, and likeness, at least you know who the people are to try to help you, as opposed to going someplace unknown and trying to build something without that support. That's a tough situation. They'll be looking for a new coach in 3 years after that. So you need that level of support, but also just a commitment to basketball. I just want to be a part of something special. And I think for me, I'm hopeful this is organic. This is really basketball. Yes, there's name, image, and likeness involved, yes, but this is somewhat organic. The energy is high, the excitement to be able to teach and lead young men. That's my ultimate goal, and that's what I enjoy doing.
yeah. Did you have to convince your family, like, the big chatter at the Final Four that Hurley was going to go to Kentucky, and Hurley's comment was, "I don't want to get divorced." So did you have to convince your wife and family to go back?
My wife was okay with it. My oldest son, he's a speech pathologist in Boston. My second son, that was a walk-on at Purdue, is a mechanical engineer. He graduates here in May. And then my daughter's 16. So it's safe to say my daughter is not leaving Florida until she's out of high school. So in most cases, I'll be solo this year. My wife will come up. And my mother-in-law and probably my mom will go down and stay with my daughter's son. But my daughter was not making it.
Hey,
so yeah.
You're living the Steve Lutz lifestyle last year at Western Kentucky, because his wife and kids
stayed in Texas.
They stayed in Texas at wherever it was, Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
It's hard being a head coach or assistant coach when you have to make those transitions, though, and it's being a part of a coach's family. I mean, that's got to be tough, and a whole different dynamic of what you're trying to do the past couple months, and then this next year as well. So.
I think if you have a great team, meaning your family, and obviously my wife is a phenomenal supporter, a very intelligent woman. So when you talk about a team, we make it go together. And her biggest thing was, if you're getting back in, and just make sure you do it with joy. And that's the biggest thing, because man, I coach the game with boxing gloves on, because you want to be successful. You fight for every inch, all the things, you operate in integrity, whatever it takes. But just try to do it with a little bit of joy behind it, because you have joy off the court and with your team, but do it on the court with joy. And that's my whole focus, to do it with joy.
Yeah. How many times did you have to ask your wife out on a date before she said yes? We're just comparing you to the other Coach Martin.
Well, the difference with this, we met at an Arby's at Purdue. I mean, at the first
we got the meat.
we met at Arby's the first weekend at Purdue. Everybody, so that was a spot after the parties, and we met right there. So it was our sophomore year, I think, 92 maybe, and I just kind of went from there. Yeah, it was good times. But I will say this: so we met, and then we didn't talk or meet for another 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks when we met, I called her and I was talking to her. She said it's her birthday, and I said, "It is?" I said, "It's my birthday too." And she said, "Oh, here we go again, one of these guys." And literally, our birthday is on the same day.
No way.
Yes.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Have you ever forgot her birthday then?
I have not. I haven't done that yet. Not yet.
All right, Sammy, set him up.
Yeah, so Coach Zoe, what we do is we do a little segment called the shot clock. It's going to be 2 or 3 minutes. LT is going to ask you like 5-6 questions. First thing that comes to mind, just let it rip. This is where we got Coach Frank Martin to say that you were the one who was going to kick his ass, but just be
wasn't going to kick his ass. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's
so
not
first
be like every other media pundit.
whether it's one word, one sentence, if you want to tell a quick story, go for it. But let's fire it off, LT.
All right, one-on-one matchup. Who would win? LaFonso Ellis, a high school teammate, or Glenn Big Dog Robinson, a college teammate?
Glenn Big Dog Robinson.
You didn't even hesitate.
Here's a different animal.
He can score it. He can score it, man. Because especially now, if you get the ball in the post and that's all they get in the post, then you probably say LaFonso. But if they get the ball in the perimeter, because Glenn can go in the post and outside. He's an elite level scorer.
Yeah. One word to describe Missouri State and one word to describe the Missouri Valley Conference.
Missouri State, exciting. Missouri Valley Conference, intellectual.
Oh, ooh, intellectual. We've never had that one before. All right. Of your college teammates or your NBA teammates, who was the biggest shit talker?
Yeah, that's a great. Big Dog was.
Yeah.
Big Dog was. Yes, but some of the X-rays we can't talk about it. And I was a part of it too, so I'm not going to put it all on him. So Big Dog said Big Dog.
Okay.
What about an opponent? Which opponent used to just drive you nuts with just flapping their lips? I mean, I heard my high school coach used to play against Gary Payton in college, and he would say Gary Payton would not stop talking.
The college opponent that would talk the most was, and he would be physical, Jason Walton that played at Minnesota, 6'7" from Texas, 6'7" kid. He almost took out the Clem Haskins, man. I'm not going to call him a dirty player. I always enjoyed playing against him because he's physical. He made you work for it. But again, I played against the 5'5" so Jalen Rose, I would give him the most talking. So Jalen Rose, but Jason Walton, I would guard him all the time. So I would say those two guys.
Yeah. Okay. Your favorite arena to coach or play in, not Purdue?
Indiana, IU, Assembly Hall.
I wonder why.
It really, I would say because of Coach Knight. I mean, it was a phenomenal atmosphere. And not only you had to beat a great team, but you're trying to be a legend on the sideline. So it was a great time.
Yeah, and Coach Katie and Coach Knight, you didn't think they were very friendly, but they were actually pretty close from what Dan Dockich told us.
Yes, but the other thing we neglect, and I have to say this, and I have a lot of respect for Coach Knight, what he did as a coach, and Pat Knight, his son, is a friend of mine. But when it's all said and done, Coach Katie has 21 wins, and Coach Knight had 20.
Funniest recruiting story or best recruiting win as a coach?
Best recruiting win, Jaylen Brown.
He's pretty good. Yes,
Jaylen Brown. Best recruiting story. God, man, you guys call me. I have to call you back on that one, man. That's a good one right there. I need to think about that one.
Okay. All right. Best advice Coach Katie ever gave you?
If you go to class every day, you'll put $100 in your bank account. If you miss class, you'll take 1,000 out. That's great.
Deep, man.
Yes, he said that. Yes.
They never said that in the SEC when we were playing sports. Well, did I say it out loud? My bad. Okay, so they're doing a Hollywood movie about your life. Who would play you?
Bokeem Woodbine. I'm a big fan of Bokeem.
Okay. We've never had that one before. All right. Here's the one that some people struggle with, some people get. The song that best describes you.
Or if you have a walkout song, that first game at Missouri State, first home game, what
I like that one, Sammy. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Man, you guys, y'all should have prepared me for this.
Dude, this is life, Coach. We're not like the regular media pundits.
Tupac, All Eyes on Me.
I love it.
You're the first Tupac reference. I like that.
First coach.
Wow. First coach.
Yeah.
We've had
KJ Simpson said Tupac. So
who said?
KJ Simpson.
Oh, KJ. Yeah. Well, he said an East Coast song. I'm like, dude, you're from LA.
I know.
So
great player there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, great player. Coach, you won nothing, you get nothing. Hopefully you made you look at yourself and you're like, why the hell am I on this damn podcast with these two yahoos?
We're gonna get the word out about you and the Bears this season, and we're really excited. We've been following your career and big fans of yours. But turn it over to you the last minute if there's anything you want to share with the Missouri State fans, alumni, booster, and student section. They call the student section the cave, I think, at Missouri State. Like anything you want to share about what you guys are working on this off season and get them excited about next year.
Just really thank you guys, one, for having me, and we're excited about our fans, the energy, the enthusiasm, the community is great. I'm happy to be here. Beautiful campus. We have 10,000 plus more students from the time I left. Beautiful place, beautiful, one of the best arenas in the country. We have it on our campus. So to all the recruits, their families, our campus supporters, we're looking forward to, and it's going to be rocking. We will win and we'll be successful.
I love it. Coach, you're going to stick out with us for one more minute. Sam, that was awesome. Coach Martin, we wish you the best of luck with the Bears. And think of me when you go to Big Bass Pro Shops. That's the first one I've ever went to is in Springfield. And I was like, I'm from Canada, man. And it was like,
the best restaurant in Springfield is Lambert's Cafe. We used to go there for tournaments, and they'd throw rolls at you and everything. And like that, that's a legendary spot in Springfield.
It is.
I'm gonna take you there one time, LT. We're gonna come down and watch the Bears.
I'm gonna get my mouth real open. I'm gonna get him to throw rolls in my mouth. Awesome.
We appreciate you, Coach. Man, good luck this season.
Thank you guys.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and follow the Bears and Coach Martin. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on the Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience.